ha 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 ha! Well, hello there, me hearties! It's been all fun and games up until now, but it's time that we join a real pirate crew! Who's with me? Yarg! I'm not just talking about the Straw Hat Pirates. They're not a real pirate crew. I haven't heard Luffy say "shiver me timbers" a single time in this story, mateys. You might be thinking the Roger Pirates might be the way to go. He was king of the pirates after all, but that's just an all bunch of hogwash to me. I mean a real pirate crew. A man that can get things done. I'm talking about Rox D. Zebek and his pirate crew. We set sail for Hachinosu at first light. Let's go, Barry! Yarg! The next day... They made fun of me. They said I didn't have what it takes to be a real pirate. They made fun of my outfit. They said it was a cheap pirate outfit that I bought at Spirit Halloween. And they laughed at my eye patch. They accepted Barry right away, though. I don't even know what's going on. He's the freaking vice captain now. I don't know, man. All right. Well... I still respect Rox, you know? I mean, just from, like, the list of all the things that he's done in the story up until now, in the 2 chapters that we've actually seen him in, kind of eclipses, like, this blows Dragon out of the water. Like, I'm gonna read this all off to you right here, okay? Everything that we have just learned about Rox, like, recently, okay? Some of this stuff is from, like, years ago, you know, when we learned that, like, oh, Rox was at God Valley and he fought Garp and Roger, or another way to look at it is Garp and Roger had to team up to bring Rox down, so that's an achievement, but, like, he's a crazy powerful swordsman that has a unique style that just blows everything away that he slices with his sword. He has Conqueror's Haki, we already knew that one. He clashed with Harold at the Reverie, and the burst of Haki was so great it knocked out everybody within a 5-kilometer radius. He broke into Marijois to begin with to capture 5 kings. He managed to get all the way into the inner sanctum of Emu, the ruler of the world, and confronted him in the most sick scene ever in the flower room, just kind of leaning down on the ground with a pistol in his hand, facing off against the ruler of everything. He stole the heavenly tribute. He blew up a gate of justice. He killed an admiral. He never lost a Davy back fight. He won some really powerful members of his crew, like Wang. He beat somebody in a Davy back, and he won Wang on his crew. Remember, you don't have to necessarily defeat, like, he didn't have to beat, like, Whitebeard in order to get Whitebeard to join him. He just had to beat the former captain of Whitebeard, you know, in order to get Whitebeard on his crew. But that's how he was able to, you know, amass a giant pirate crew. He never lost a Davy back. He ruled Hachinosu, fought Garp and Roger, and he's the father of Blackbeard. And, like, the vast majority of that stuff we learned in just 2 chapters. So, Dragon, you got a lot of stuff. And honestly, like, Shanks, Akainu, Garling, Sengoku, you got a lot of stuff to live up to here. Right? Like, I don't know if Oda's gonna give you guys as much of a chapter as he gave Rox, but, like, damn, he really had to go full throttle with that, right? All right, so today, we're going to be talking about the Rox pirate crew, okay? And my God, is it a pirate crew. They have exploded in terms of the members that we previously knew about. We used to only know about a few, and a lot of them were ones that we're already introduced to, like Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard, and everybody. But right now we have 15 confirmed members of the Rox pirate crew, all right? Starting, of course, off with Rox D. Zebek, the man that would become the king of the world. And I've just mentioned all of the crazy stuff that he's capable of. We already knew about Whitebeard. We already knew about Shiki, but we got some new information about Shiki. Then we have, for some reason, he's called Ochoko on here, or Choku, but no, we all know his name is Wang! Wang Shi is finally in One Piece. We got Miss Buckingham Stussy, the original, not the clone. We have Ganzui, who is actually one of the general zombies at Thriller Bark. A few of these guys are going to turn out to be general zombies later. Then we have Don Marlon, who's the original Godfather. And we have Charlotte Linlin, Big Mom. We got Kaido, who was like the cabin boy apprentice pirate. Kaido was raised in the Vodka Kingdom, that's not a surprise, to basically be like a super soldier. And he was really good at super soldiering around, right? He was extremely powerful, very dangerous guy, Kaido, and he was only like 15 years old at the time. And he was like the cabin boy. He was the apprentice. He was the one that had to like mop the poop deck. All right, that's where he stood on this crew. Then we have Captain John. He's also a general zombie. He was a drunk. That was his crew mutinied him. And he has a famous treasure out there in the world somewhere that Buggy got his hands on, the treasure marker from Luffy. And so I guess Buggy never actually got around to finding that treasure. I always assumed that was what he used as the capital to build up Buggy's delivery, like his mercenary service was Captain John's treasure. But no, we later find out he took out a small loan from Crocodile, and that's how he ended up to open that operation up. So I guess Captain John's treasure is still out there somewhere. Then we have Gloriosa, a former empress of Amazon Lily. So Boa Hancock is the current empress. Before Boa was a woman by the name of Tritoma, who passed away from love sickness. Before Tritoma, it was Shakuyaku, who was Shaki, who is Rayleigh's wife, who was the empress before her. And then before Shaki, it was Gloriosa, who is now currently Granny Nyon, who lives on the island, kind of like on the outskirts of the village. So yeah, she was originally a member. Then we have Stroizen, just by like extension of Big Mom being on the crew. Stroizen was also a member of the Rocks Pirates. You do see him in the manga chapter kind of off to the side. Then we have Gil Bastar, who was just revealed in SBS Volume 112. I think Oda kind of realized that we were going to find out a lot of stuff about Rocks lately, so he just started revealing all these characters. Gil Bastar is a character from Wanted, which is one of Oda's original mangas, like way before One Piece. He drew it when he was like 17 years old. It's a story about like an Old West gunslinger that's just really badass and just awesome shot at like everything. Although in the One Piece world, he seems to have 4 arms, because even before he was a zombie that was reanimated at Thriller Bark, you might just say Hogback like grafted on some extra arms. No, even before that, he had 4 arms at God Valley, so before he died, right? So Gil Bastar is a member, probably one of the best sharpshooters in the entire world. Then we have Silver Axe, who we haven't seen Silver Axe. Maybe Oda forgot about Silver Axe, I don't know. As long as Oda didn't forget about Wang, that's all I care about, right? Okay. But yeah, Silver Axe was also a crewmate. I'm gonna assume, just off the top of my head, he used a silver axe to fight. Maybe he used a golden spear, or maybe a bronze halberd. Bronze halberd, maybe. I don't know, but I'm going to say he used a silver axe. And then we just have, like, a random guy who is most likely a fishman that we saw during the flashback at God Valley, really in the manga. He was there. I don't even think he showed up in the anime, honestly. But yeah, he is a fishman that was also a member of the crew. So, yeah, don't know anything about him, but maybe we'll find out about him later. Okay. Oh, by the way, might have been this individual. There's, like, a creepy general zombie that's, like, you know, has a full body suit, kind of like a spiky gimp, you know, that we see that's, like, locked up and all this, like, torture equipment and everything. Maybe that was that dude. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, here are the Rocks Pirates, and I don't even know if this is, like, all of them. It's probably not. But these are definitely the heavy hitters that Rocks was able to gather together for his big money-making plan of going to Hachinosu, because we learn a lot about Hachinosu in the last chapter as well. It used to be a penal colony back in the day. Hey, don't laugh at that. Just like Wang, this is meant to be taken seriously. So Hachinosu was essentially a penal colony like Australia was in our world, where the government and like all these countries of the world would send like criminals to just like basically die in a wasteland, essentially. Don't know if Impel Down was around yet, or if Hachinosu was used before that, or if Impel Down was filled and they're just like, yeah, just, you know, overflow. Just send them to the barren rock and like let them die there. Unfortunately, they didn't realize that much like our Australia, there's a lot of resources and like mineral deposits under Hachinosu. So the underworld got involved, you know, like all the different underworld organizations that we have learned about in One Piece, like during the Tea Party at Whole Cake Island, right? They learned about this, started working together with the pirates there, and that is how Hachinosu became Pirate Paradise, Pirate Island, Full of Lead Island, as it is in the English version. So Rocks is looking at this situation. And you might think that, like, Rocks was like, oh, I'm just going to go join the Pirate Paradise. Oh, no. Rocks had a bigger kind of picture for all this, right? So Rocks government, and he's like, hey there, see you guys having problems with that pirate island over yonder. And they're like, yeah, it's a real pain in our ass right now that those pirates ended up finding all that gold that was underneath the penal colony that we sent them to. And Rox is like, yeah, I bet that really does suck bad. Hey, how about I'll do you guys a favor. I'll go over there and I'll wipe out all the pirates. And then we'll just split the profits 50-50. How about that, right? And the government, I mean, they apparently agreed to it because that's what was happening at the end of the last chapter. I was a little confused by how everything was going on, but no, that was Rox's fleet heading towards Pirate Island to take it over from the other pirates that were taking it over, right? Okay. Now, of course, Rox said to Harold, like, I have no intention of actually agreeing to that deal with the government. Like, I'm not going to give the government the Hachinosu or the money in the process. No. I'm just going to take over Hachinosu myself, be the ruler of it, and then me and my crew will take all of the resources for ourselves, right? And so that apparently did happen because Rox did rule over Hachinosu. This was 44 years ago is when Rox invaded Hachinosu, and also the mountain did not look like this back then. It was like the same shape, but it didn't have like the eye holes and everything into it. So I'm assuming after Rox took over, they remodeled the mountain a little bit. And then it was 38 years ago is when the Tenryubito stole some devil fruits from Hachinosu, like the fish fruit model as your dragon, and the pawpaw fruit, and some other valuables. And then they poked the beehive, as it were. And so it was 44 years ago, Rox took over. 6 years after that is when God Valley occurred, and that was the downfall of Rox and his crew. Rox purportedly died in an epic duel with Garp and Roger, although the Marines, the official story is it was just Garp that, defeated Rox. In actuality, Garp was helped by Roger. They needed to work together in order to take him out there, which would have been a wild battle. And then the rest of the members all scattered to the winds. Whitebeard started his own crew. Stussy went to go freeload off of Mads and probably make a botched clone of Whitebeard that ended up being Weevil. The gang all went their separate ways. Oh my god, you know what I actually just thought of? This would be so funny. Like, I might actually do something like this. Like, you ever see The Sandlot? Okay? You ever see The Sandlot where it's like a guy that's like reminiscing about like his childhood? Like, that was one amazing summer when we all got together and played at The Sandlot, right? And he's reminiscing about all this shit. Wouldn't it be funny if it was from Kaido's perspective? Like, one magical summer, me and the crew all went to go raid Hachinosu together. And it was me, Kaido. I was just a young kid back then. I didn't know what was up. There was Don Marlon, King Mobster. There was Shiki, the Yakuza, who was different from a mobster. There was Wang Ji, the pirate cultist. Like they're just telling a story. That would be great from Kaido's perspective. Awesome. All right. So, let's go through some of the new members of the Rox crew that we did not know about beforehand, right? So we already knew enough about Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Stussy, even Gloriosa. Let's start by talking about Wang. All right, yeah, okay. So Wang Ji, or Ochoku in Japanese, the name would be written as, it's not actually pronounced Wang. I know it's the funny way to take it, but it's actually like Wang Zhe would be, I think, the way you would actually pronounce his name in Chinese. So we get to see him. He's a large guy with multiple chins because he's old. Actually, we don't know how old he was there, though he did live to a ripe old age because he was the commander, the leader of Hachinosu before Blackbeard took over, like during the 2-year time skip. So he would have been pushing 80, 90 years old. And even then, he was still pretty much a powerhouse because Blackbeard required Kobe and Law in order to oust him from Hachinosu so Blackbeard could take over right now. Okay, and this only occurred, this was the Rocky Port incident. So this only occurred like a year ago, all right? So Wang might still be alive, but he'd be very, very old. A lot of people have said that Wang looks like the father of Caribou and Korobo, and there are a lot of similarities there in terms of the face. Wang has like a long tongue that's like a serpent tongue that's like forked at the end. Caribou also has a really creepy tongue. He was also mentioned to be a big fan of Blackbeard, so if Wang followed Rox, who Rox is Blackbeard's father, maybe there's a connection there. Caribou also tends to be a little insane. I don't know if you noticed, he sort of prays when he kills people. You know, he like beats people up with a shovel and then he begins to pray, "Oh, pirate messiah, oh, have mercy on this one. Oh, he's still alive." You know, so he's kind of insane. So you could definitely see that. Although I'm still putting some chips on Moria. Some relationship between Wang Ji and Moria, just because Moria ended up getting all of these really valuable corpses, you know, Gil Bastar's corpse, Ganzui, and Captain John, who were all members of the Rocks Pirates, some of the strongest people that ever lived in the story. And Moria was able to get his hands on all of these, and he also knew where, like, how to get to Hachinosu and things like that. Maybe it's really hard to get there, maybe it's not, I don't know. I'm just saying that he was able to get there. So, I don't know, Wang Ji ruling Hachinosu, getting his hands on these corpses, and then having, you know, he's the father of Moria, so Moria could have gotten his hands on these bodies and went to make Thriller Bark over in, I guess, West Blue, and then he went over into Paradise. Still don't know how that worked. I don't know. I still feel like there's something there with Moria, so I'll throw it out there, but a lot of people have been saying Caribou and Korobo, so we'll see if it connects back to them as well. He is referred to as, and this changes depending on the translation, I have seen cultist, I have seen guru, I have seen prophet. So in Japanese, the kanji that are used here is called Kaizoku Kyoso. All right, so Kaizoku obviously means pirate. All right, I think we should all be familiar with Kaizoku. If there's one word in Japanese that you should be familiar with right now as a fan of One Piece, it should be Kaizoku, okay? All right, so Kaizoku, pirate, and then Kyoso, kanji can be broken up here. There's two kanji for Kyoso. The Kyo part could mean teaching or religion or doctrine. All right, like a teacher, somebody that's teaching something religious or a doctrine of something. And then so, in this context, means ancestor or founder. So there's like a neutral way of looking at this where I think guru and prophet sort of fits in rather well because we don't really know which direction Oda's going with it yet. But I'm going to go with pirate cultist because that sounds sick as hell, right? Like, and that is something, like an angle we really haven't taken that much in One Piece. Some people, we were doing a live stream yesterday, some people brought up like, well, Buggy is sort of seen in that light, which Buggy might also be the child of Roxy Zebek. There has been a thing where people have translated Zebek into Vietnamese, and it comes out as Buggy, or like a parallel, like phonetically sounds very similar to Buggy. So who knows? He was the father of Blackbeard. We know that for sure. But Rox also probably got around. Rox had Wang on his crew, if you know what I mean. So maybe he's the father of Buggy, too. I mean, Buggy's 39 and Blackbeard's 40, so it fits, you know. Maybe Buggy is Blackbeard's younger half-brother. But yeah, Buggy is kind of set up like that, but he didn't intend that to be the case, right? He just went through Impel Down and just by happen chance ended up having a bunch of followers that kind of looked at him sort of as a messiah. It would be very interesting from an angle of Wang deciding to be like, no, I am going to set myself up as the leader of a religion, a pirate doctrine, a cult of pirates, and I'm going to like spread my message and amass a following, and that's what he ended up doing at Hachinosu. So Rox took the place over with his crew. Rox was killed at God Valley. And then Wang was like, well, free real estate. I guess I'll just take over. And if he was like this religious leader, you could see how that could go. You could see how people follow cults in our world, you know, and just like you can get indoctrinated and just inculcated into this. And you could just be like, yes, yes, High Priest Wang, we worship thee, you know, and it could be that. And he ruled over Hachinosu for like 37 years, right up until last year when the Rocky Port incident occurred, right? I'm picturing Wang as this like shriveled up old man at that point, wearing like long, like religious robes and carrying like a magic scepter or some bullshit. Maybe he has a crown and he's just like, ah, yes, I am the ruler of the pirate doctrine. You will worship me, you know, like something like that. Hey, it's not really anything we've had a direct parallel to, Buggy would probably be the closest, but Buggy didn't go over the top with like the religious imagery and stuff like that. Although there was one filler episode, I don't know, it might have been in the manga actually, where the gates of justice were opening and Buggy was holding the staff and everyone was like, it's like Moses parting the Red Sea. And I think fucking like the 1812 overtures playing in the background, or Ave Maria or something is playing in the background during the anime. It was a crazy scene, right? And like the cherubs come down and they sing over Buggy, right? That could have been straight up Wang. You know what I mean? Like, there it is. Okay, all right. So that's we have Wang Ji there. Okay. So for Kyoso, I'm gonna go with cultist for right now because I think that has more like impact on the character, right? Then we have we already know about Stussy. Let's go to Ganzui next. Okay, so Ganzui is the general zombie at Thriller Bark that has the big giant golden armor. Also, he has the bottom half of an elephant, which I don't think we've really seen Ganzui's legs so far, so that could have been a modification by Dr. Hogback, could have grafted some animal legs onto him, but then again, Gil Bastar had 4 arms as well back then, so maybe Ganzui was like a centaur, but he had like an elephant legs. I don't know. Big giant dude, if nothing else. Huge shoulder pads, long beard, and quite a hearty appetite that we've seen. Him just like devouring a bunch of Elbathian grapes, you know, and just at the dinner table with Harold there. I gotta be honest with you, I would have probably been, and this seems to be a sentiment that a lot of people share, if Wang and Ganzui's designs were swapped, I would have been okay with that. I would have been okay with Ganzui's design, big giant hulking dude with the armor being Wang this whole time rather than the other way around. But Ganzui, for that reason, I mean, he's a very interesting looking character, so we'll see where that goes. He is stated to just be smuggler. All right. And once again, I kind of really like the idea that there's like different aspects of piracy in the One Piece world, right? So Wang is leading like a pirate cult, like a religious faction. And then Ganzui is more into the smuggling aspect of piracy rather than, I mean, I'm sure he's murdered a lot of people too, but like the transport and everything. One of the members of the underworld is Gibberson the Hider or the Concealer, okay? And so, maybe not necessarily Ganzui's working with Gibberson. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, like, we're expanding the lore of the world of One Piece. So there's, like, no, there are these kind of pirates that are looking for the One Piece. Then there's other kind of pirates that are going around just burning and just stealing stuff from, you know, islands and towns to get by. There's pirates that pick direct fights with the world government. And then there's pirates that more focus on, like, the underworld trade operation. Doflamingo was another one that really had, like, the underground port at Dressrosa was shipping that like that special ore, that like alcoholic ore all over the place or something like that. Never really knew what happened with that. That never really got expanded upon. Maybe we'll learn more about that ore later. But yeah, Ganzui, big hulking dude. He was beaten by Frankie. He was punched by Frankie pre-time skip. But remember, that's just his body. All right. The idea is the same thing with Ryuma. Like, if Zoro fought Ryuma in his prime when he was alive, Zoro pre-time skip would not have won. That was Ryuma. He was the sword god. Okay. Same thing with Ganzui and John and Gil Bastar. They are powerful bodies physically, but they've also been rotting for a while. And, you know, Hogback can try his best at like stitching them up, and they could throw a strong shadow in there, but they're just not going to be as powerful as they were in their real life. Like, look at Ryuma. Ryuma's, you know, sword style would have been completely different than Brook's like fencing style that he was using because of the shadow. It was still very formidable, and his skills with that fencing style were greater than Brook's. But if Ryuma was like, you know, at age 40, when he was still alive at his peak, using his own personal sword style, there's no way. There's no contest, right? That's just the way it would have went, right? So, after Ganzui, we have Don Marlon, who is based off, of course, Marlon Brando, who plays the Godfather in The Godfather. I have to go back and watch the Godfather movies. It's been a long time, right? But yeah, so this guy, a lot of people are saying this is Beiji's dad. I don't think, see, this doesn't even have to be a thing where like, oh, he's a mobster, gangster, and Beiji's also a gangster. It was mentioned directly. There are 5 principal mafia families in the West Blue. Beiji, Capone Beiji, I guess the Capone family was one of them, and Rustage actually fleshes out a few other ones in One Piece D&D Marines that we fought against. But, you know, there were 4 other families that we don't know about, all right? Don Marlon could have been part of one of those families. Makes sense. Also, here's another way of looking at it. Darn Marlon would have been the boss of the West Blue, like, 50-something years ago. So this is well before Beiji's time. What if Don Marlon was the leader of just one big mafia family in the West? Like, there was just one back then. Then, after the events of God Valley, Don Marlon dies. Or maybe even before God Valley. I mean, I don't think that's going to be the case. But at one point, Don Marlon's no longer in the picture. And then the family split into different factions, or there were other crime families that just couldn't compete because the main family was too powerful, and then just fractured into eventually 5 separate mafia families that then Beiji manages to kind of subjugate. And then he was so bored with leading the West Blue that he's like, I'm going to form the Fire Tank Pirates and go into the Grand Line. So there you go. So we don't know much about Don Marlon other than the fact he is just mafia boss from the West, which is where a lot of the mafioso from the One Piece world go to. But there is another character that is connections with, like, organized crime here, right? So we have Don Marlon, who's a very much, like, Western kind of mobster, like, think New York City in, like, Prohibition era, 1920s, 30s, Al Capone kind of time period. Then we have Shiki. My man Shiki, the Golden Lion, all right? But he wasn't the Golden Lion back then. He also wasn't the Flying Pirate back then. Back then, he was, and once again, different translations for this. I've seen thug, I've seen mobster, I've also seen yakuza. So the kanji for this word that is used in Japanese is gokudo, all right? And gokudo is essentially like Goku taking things to the ultimate, the apex, the highest point you could go. Makes sense given Goku from Dragon Ball, right? And then do is kind of an interesting concept from this kanji. It means the path, the way, all right? It has connections to Taoism, all right? But if you put those words together, historically, they were utilized very dramatically to refer to as the Yakuza in our world, okay? In the sense of, like, you are a man of the underworld that follows those doctrines to, like, the extreme is the best way to use it. Very dramatic way of utilizing it. Let's say, let me put it this way. You could call someone that's part of the mafia, you could call them, like, a mafioso, or, you know, that has some more flair to it. Or you could just call them a thug. You know, one has, like, he's just a common thug kind of thing. There's different levels of, like, oh, wow, that one sounds more impressive than that. All right, I wish I had Giorno Giovanna next to me. He could probably explain it a little bit better, right? But it is definitely a reference to the Yakuza in our world. And where are there Yakuza in One Piece, guys? We know where the Yakuza are at. They're at Wano. Right? Okay, I think there's other characters, other places in the One Piece world where the Yakuza is referenced, but definitely Wano, where there's the different families for the different regions, and then Hyogoro was the head of the Yakuza families at the Flower Capital, right? And then we also just learned about a temple, a grave in Ringo of a hero that was born in the West, but was raised in Wano and was buried in Ringo. What if that's Shiki? Now, that does kind of suck because that means Shiki is dead in the current timeline. But it's One Piece. Maybe it shows up as a zombie later. Moria is still alive, I think. Yeah, he's still alive, right? Yeah, Perona and Kobe saved him. That was a weird thing where, like, Perona was like, I'll let you out, Kobe, if you help me save Moria. He's deeper in the dungeon. And then we just immediately cut to Kobe running around outside. Perona's gone. Moria is not even mentioned. So I was like, I guess he let them go? I assume he helped Perona. I don't know. But anyway, what if that was Shiki? What if Shiki was born in the West, was raised in Wano, and then died in Wano, and he was applauded as a hero? Now, here's the thing. Like, all the events of Strong World did not happen. All right, so he didn't have Merville. He didn't have the clown doctor working for him, Dr. Indigo. He didn't build up this flying place and everything like that. There's a lot about Shiki that is going to be changed in the context of the manga, right? So you might be asking, well, how would he be viewed as a hero in Wano? We have no idea about Shiki's life. Maybe from the people of Wano, he was a hero. I threw out an idea on a stream, and I just want to say, what do you think about this? What if he was raised in Wano, and then he left, and he joined the Rocks crew? Kaido eventually takes over Wano with Orochi, and they ruin the land. You know, the people are suffering. They're deforesting the entire, like, Udon region, and, you know, like, all the factories are being constructed and everything like that. If Shiki was raised in Wano and, like, he views them as his family and he was part of the Yakuza, what if Shiki at one point was like, oh, no, you're not ruining my homeland. That's where I was raised, you know? And he went to Wano, fought Kaido and Orochi and all of the Beast Pirates and all of the Oniwabanshu and the samurai, the Mimawari Gumi and everything like that. And he was just like, okay, I'm not gonna let you ruin my country. And then Shiki died. And he was applauded as a hero. This could have happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It could have happened like after Odin passed away, you know, after he defeated Moria. Kaido defeats Odin in Moria. And then like a few years later, Shiki shows up to try to bring Wano back, or kill Kaido at least, or Orochi, because they're ruining everything. Or maybe because Shiki and Kaido were on the same crew, it was mentioned they didn't like each other. Maybe Shiki's problem was more with Orochi. But obviously, Kaido's not going to let Orochi die yet, because that's not part of the plan. He does kill him eventually, but, like, Shiki's like, oh, I'm going to go and kill this son of a bitch Orochi, because he's ruining the place that I grew up in. All the people that I loved are, like, the Yakuza are all imprisoned at that point in Udon. Everybody was there, so he's like, you know, Hyo was in prison, so he's like, oh, no, Hyo might have, like, raised Shiki, you know, when he was a kid or something like that, right? There was also another Yakuza. Oh, yeah, this guy got cut out of the manga. He shows up in Oda's notes. Let me just search for him really quick. There was a Yakuza rival of Old Man Hyo back way before Orochi took over. This was back during, like, the Mountain God incident and stuff like that. Kuro Koma. That was his name, Kuro Koma. That was his rival, and at some point, yeah, he was taken out, and then it was just Hyo that ruled over. But that was like his battle was going on before Orochi and everything took over, right? Okay, so maybe this was the guy that raised Shiki. I don't know, and we don't know how old Shiki is either. Like, if we put him around the same age as, like, Whitebeard, you know, he would be around in his 70s, some such like that, you know, like Rayleigh, Gabon, Roger, Whitebeard, they're all roughly around the same age. They'd be in, like, his late 70s. So it's very possible if Shiki was born in the West but ended up in Wano somehow as a child, he could have been like 10 years old being taught the art of the sword by the Yakuza. That could have been like 60 years ago. It might have even been before Kozaburo Shimosuke left to go to the East. It could have been even before that. And he stayed there for a while and studied, and then he left, and then he came back and fought Kaido and died. He was a hero. Maybe. Anyway, aside from that, let's see here. We already know, as I made a video about John, obviously Kaido and Linlin. We know about them very well. Talked about Gloriosa, made a video about her. We have Stroizen, also part of the Big Mom crew. Gil Bastar, I talked about him in the most recent SBS video, so you go check that out there. And then we still don't know anything about Silver Axe or the random Fishman guy. Yeah, that's the Rocks crew as they currently exist, their current permeation. Probably going to be more strong members. Oda might just be taking old characters from, like, the original Romance Dawn drafts or his old manga series and just throwing them all into the Rocks Pirates. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Crazy stuff that we have learned about Wang and about Ganzui, and we have a mobster and all the stuff that Rocks is capable of. Crazy time in this flashback. And I don't know if we're just going to keep learning about it. We're just going to see all of God Valley in this flashback. I don't know. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Even though I didn't get accepted into the Rocks crew, it's okay, guys. I'm going to start my own pirate crew. You want to join? I guess you already are. Subscribe to join Tekking's pirate crew. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking signing out. Bye.